Today we take a look at the life of author Stephen King. Stephen Edwin King was born on September 21st, 1947 in Portland, Maine. His father, Donald Edwin King, was a merchant sailor born with the last name Pollock. His father disliked the name Pollock, however, and had it legally changed to King as an adult. His mother's name was Nellie, and his parents were married in Scarborough, Maine on July 23rd, 1939. When King was 2 years old, his father walked out on the family.
He said, "Ruth, I'm going to go out and get a pack of cigarettes." And that was the last she ever saw of him.
His mother went on to raise both Stephen and his older brother David with very little money and few resources. She was a determined woman and managed to keep the family afloat by working various jobs. As a kid, King witnessed one of his friends being hit and killed by a train. He has no memory of the event, though his family told him that after leaving home to play with the boy, he returned home speechless and in shock. Some literary observers have suggested that this fact has played into the darker side of his writing. Steve and his brother Dave spent a lot of their childhood reading books, and one day they went to the attic in search of novels. Up in that dusty room, King discovered a box of his father's old books, including a collection of H.P. Lovecraft's horror stories. Those stories would have a major impact on him. King started writing early and began submitting short stories to publications at the age of 12. Although he wouldn't have success in those early days, the passion for writing would never leave him. He graduated from Lisbon Falls High School in 1966, and later that year began studying at the University of Maine, graduating in 1970 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English. While at university, he wrote a column called Steve King's Garbage Truck for the student newspaper, and he also served in the school's student government. King met his wife, Tabitha Spruce, who is also a novelist, at the university's Folger Library, and they married in 1971. The couple have 3 children. Daughter Naomi, who is a reverend, son Owen, who authored the book Sleeping Beauties with his father, and son Joe Hill King, who is also a best-selling writer. After Stephen graduated from college, his family struggled financially. He held a variety of jobs to support them during this period, including working as a janitor, as a gas pump attendant, and as a worker at an industrial laundry. In 1971, he started teaching high school English classes at the Hampden Academy in Hampden, Maine, and this gave him the opportunity to write short stories in the evenings after work. He sold his first professional short story, The Glass Floor, to Startling Mystery Stories in 1967, and continued selling short stories from that point on to supplement his income. After being arrested for stealing a traffic cone that knocked his muffler off, he was fined $250 for petty theft, but had no money to pay. When a check arrived for his short story, The Raft, King cashed it and paid the fine. His career as a best-selling writer began with the publication of Carrie in 1974. Carrie began as a short story, and after writing 3 pages, he gave up on it, throwing it in the trash. His wife found the manuscript in the bin and encouraged him to complete it. He took her advice, lengthened the story into a novel, and the rest is literary history. King followed Carrie up with Salem's Lot in 1975, The Shining and Rage in 1977, and the epic post-apocalyptic piece The Stand in 1978. By the time he published The Stand, he was also working as a creative writing teacher at the University of Maine, and his family's financial troubles were firmly resolved. During the 1980s, Stephen developed an addiction to alcohol and cocaine. This was highly fueled by his newfound income and became a very serious problem throughout the decade. He says of one of his most notable works, Cujo, a novel about a rabid Saint Bernard, that he doesn't even remember writing the book. He also wrote under the alias of Richard Bachman. Under this alter ego, he published 7 books, including The Long Walk, Thinner, Blaze, and Roadwork. In 1976, Carrie was adapted for the big screen. Film critic Roger Ebert said of the movie, "Carrie is an absolutely spellbinding horror movie, with a shock at the end that's the best thing along those lines since the shark leaped aboard in Jaws." From that point forward, many of Stephen King's works were turned into movies and television programs. In 1980, his ghost story, The Shining, was adapted as a movie by legendary director Stanley Kubrick, and The Stand was adapted as a television miniseries in 1994. Other King novels worked into movies include Cujo, The Dead Zone, and Christine, all adapted in 1983, Pet Sematary in 1989, Misery in 1990, and Needful Things in 1993. Dozens and dozens of King's works have been made into movies, and we don't have time to mention them all here, but perhaps the most recognized among them are It and The Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank is largely regarded as one of the best movies ever produced and won 21 major awards out of 43 nominations. He is the most adapted author in history concerning movies made from his books, and his contributions to cinema have contributed to his impact on pop culture and the world at large. Steve's magnum opus is his epic fantasy series, The Dark Tower. It consists primarily of 7 books and tells the tale of the world's last gunslinger, Roland of Gilead, who is on a quest for the Dark Tower. This series is truly unique in the way that many of King's other books have an impact on it. Books such as Insomnia, Black House, and Hearts in Atlantis are all about the tower. Salem's Lot, The Stand, The Eyes of the Dragon, Everything's Eventual, It, and many others contribute huge amounts of depth, background, and scope to the Tower novels, making it a massive realm and a literary achievement. And the Tower epic isn't the only thing in King's works like this. Many of his seemingly standalone pieces play a part with one another. In this way, he has done something to an extent that perhaps no other author has done. He's created one big universe with overlap and crossover between his books that is stunning and incredible. Stephen is known for writing lengthy horror novels, but it's true that he writes in a variety of genres, including detective mystery, fantasy, romance, westerns, drama, science fiction, and nonfiction. Examples of these are the dark romance novel Lisey's Story, about a woman's life after the death of her husband, The Tommyknockers, a science fiction work about extraterrestrials on Earth, and the prison drama about a man falsely accused of a horrendous crime, The Green Mile. He has also written several nonfiction books, including the memoir and writing instructional, On Writing, and a book about horror fiction in print, Dance Macabre. King is a guitar player and has been in a band since 1992. The Rock Bottom Remainders is a group comprised entirely of authors. It includes legal thriller writer Scott Turow, as well as The Simpsons creator and writer Matt Groening. From time to time, they get together and play a live gig with King, both playing guitar and singing. Steve is also a big-time baseball and Boston Red Sox fan. He has been seen countless times at live games, oftentimes reading a paperback between innings. His love of the sport and his favorite team even led him to co-author a nonfiction book with Stuart O'Nan called Faithful. 2 diehard Boston Red Sox fans chronicle the historic 2004 season. Stephen's son Joe sometimes accompanies his father to baseball games. King also loves collecting and riding motorcycles, particularly Harley Davidsons. He was even asked to join the cast of the popular outlaw motorcycle television program Sons of Anarchy. He made an appearance on the show in a 2010 episode called Caregiver. In 1999, Stephen had a real-life experience with horror. He was out walking near his main home when a distracted driver plowed a minivan into him. He sustained multiple serious injuries and remained in the hospital for nearly a month. Although he pulled through, the severe pain he was left with afterward at one point led him to announce a retirement from writing. Fortunately for the literary and cinematic worlds, he recovered enough to continue to pursue his passion. For nearly 5 decades, Stephen King has impacted the world with his books and movies. His contributions to literature are legion, with close to 100 books, hundreds of short stories and many adaptations of his works. He has continued to stay current, completing his Mr. Mercedes trilogy in 2016, releasing the novel The Institute in 2019, and publishing a compilation of stories titled If It Bleeds in 2020. Even in his 70s, he is still relevant with no end in sight of new books. His literary legacy will be of the likes that very few have ever achieved. May he continue to live and write for many years to come. And there you have it, the life of Stephen King. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel for more literary and Stephen King content. And feel encouraged to let me know down in the comments which King books and/or adaptations are your favorites. Thanks for joining me. Long days and pleasant nights, my friends.